Hey, friends, we're going to hit on a lot of points in today's episode because we got pushed back just a little bit with a little thing called the Jorge Polanco trade. We'll have a little more analysis and insight on that. Dave has written something that will appear tomorrow. But beyond that, we have all different things to touch on. And by the way, this is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I am one of your hosts. My name is Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And joining me is His Majesty at Answer Dave. Dave Brown, how are you this evening?
I didn't know I was related to the royal family.
No.
Thank you.
I mean, if they can marry someone in there that used to be, was she like a soap opera actress or something like that? Who knows? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Nevertheless, thank you for joining us, Dave. Thanks for joining us. If you are watching us on YouTube, click the like, click the subscribe button, all that good stuff. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review is greatly appreciated. Helps us move up the charts and look legit to advertisers and other listeners. Also, if you want to be active in the comment section on YouTube, I'd love to interact with you. We had a lot of comments on the most recent episode, which was basically a 30-minute breakdown of the Jorge Polanco trade. We'll go back and check some of those too, because there were a lot of people talking about different aspects of that trade. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Dave, I recommend you check it out if you haven't, because I've watched the Minnesota one and we're on there. As long as we hit our marks, we're on there, and it's pretty cool. It's honestly pretty cool. Locked On Sports Today, though, is what it's called. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Get Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Click subscribe, and you will be tuned in to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Dave, lot to get to. I want to start, though, with some news that broke not in the last few days, but it got pushed back just because of the pressing need to talk about Jorge Polanco. But 2 inductions into the Twins Hall of Fame in Terry Ryan and Rick Stelmaszek. So if you're not familiar with Stelmaszek, he was a bullpen coach for the Twins for like 30-some years. He's believed to be the second or third longest tenured coach in MLB history, I believe. Maybe not history, because Connie Mack would be way up there, but maybe modern baseball. I know it was considered excessively long. Are you familiar with Stelmaszek at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, I basically know him. Whenever the White Sox would play the Twins, he would be mentioned as one of the coaches, and he's got a kind of a name that you never forget. So I can sort of hear, like, even Don Drysdale, who called the White Sox games 35 years ago. I remember, mentioning him. That was always a guy, Wayne Terwilliger, and the coaches are always familiar to me.
Yeah. Well, I remember Terwilliger, of course, because I like to go back on YouTube and watch old Twins games.
Yeah.
And so there's a 1994 matinee with the Twins and the Mariners where actually Torey Lovullo, who manages the Diamondbacks.
He does very well too.
He was playing for the Mariners in that game. Lou Piniella, all that fun stuff. But I think it was 1994. So Terwilliger was on that coaching staff. Recently passed away. Stelmaszek actually born in Chicago and passed away in Chicago too. So I guess you have more in common than you maybe realized. I do want to ask you too, did you ever get to talk much to Terry Ryan? Because Terry is my all-time favorite baseball person that I've met in the game. and still to this day sends me a text on my birthday that absolutely it's delightful. I absolutely love it.
That's great that he does that and doesn't rely on Facebook or whatever to remind him of people in his life who are having a birthday, and that it doesn't really surprise me. He's he's very grandfatherly like and
Yep.
very reserved, and you could tell that he was kind of a thoughtful, kind person, and as far as we could tell, and I did get to talk with him a few times, and sometimes talking with people like the executives or even managers and coaches can be kind of intimidating, and he was like the opposite of that. He put you
Yep.
very much at ease, and you were talking to a fellow human being when you were talking to Terry Ryan. So he's very deserving of getting this award.
And I think that maybe, I don't think we necessarily took it for granted, but I know that opposing writers would just marvel at the fact that every time the Twins had a night game, Terry would be waiting for us at a table in the dining room at 6:30 to talk shop. It was an official conversation, like it was on the record every single night game, either he or Rob Antony, a front office representative. That level of intimate conversation with executives like that, that to me really shows what he brought to the table as a communicator, a leader, and a human being.
Yeah, and it has a real functionality to it that I think front offices of today would benefit from if they, different teams, different GMs and presidents have different styles. I'm not sure if there are any regular meetings like that among them, but I think it is a little bit of a different era today. It's sometimes it's you have to try really hard as a member of the media to get a hold of somebody in the executive branch, and maybe they have time for you and maybe they don't. But Terry Ryan certainly always seemed to make time, as if it was part of his job. And I guess it doesn't have to be if you're a baseball executive, but I think it's better for all parties if it is.
One of my favorite memories of him, and it just kind of showed the human style or human side of him rather, was his second tenure with the Twins. So he dipped for a while around the time of the Johan Santana trade, and then came back when Bill Smith was summarily dismissed. And he was going into the clubhouse after a tough game. I want to say it was 2014 or 15. But anyhow, they had a backup security guard or like a rent-a-cop watching the front of the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And Terry walked right up, opened the door in the cooling off period where media is not allowed into there. And the guy stopped him. He was like, hey, you can't go in there. And Terry just showed him the badge, and the guy was so sheepish. And Terry couldn't have been nicer about it. And it's like the guy who probably has access to every single square inch of that stadium didn't dress down a guy for, frankly, just doing his job. But
Right.
I think that a lot of different people in that level of position would have handled it a lot less graciously.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's a good example of sometimes they say that people's true nature is comes out when they're not being watched. It's not quite the same thing, but it's sort of a similar deal. That's like you said, it might another person might have gotten upset or might have treated the temporary guy differently. But we saw what was kind of inside Terry Ryan's heart there. It's a kind person, an understanding person, a reasonable person.
Yeah, it's kind of like this shopping supermarket shopping cart thing where do you put the cart back if nobody's watching you? It's kind of like the measure of character. I want to go over the list though of Twins Hall of Famers just as a refresher. I'll go backwards just because it's quite a list. 2023 was Joe Mauer, which was a very fun induction. Cesar Tovar and Dan Gladden in 2022. Oh, and also Ron Gardenhire. Justin Morneau elected in 2020, inducted in 2021. Certainly no COVID threw a wrench into that. Joe Nathan and Jerry Bell in 2019. Jerry Bell was the club president for sure when they won the 87 World Series. I think 91 as well. Before that, Johan Santana in 2018, Andy McPhail and Michael Kadire in 17, Torrey Hunter and John Gordon, the former broadcaster, also known as Wally Holland on Little Big League. Sorry. Chuck Nombuck was elected but not inducted in 2014, which is quite a footnote. Eddie Guardado and Tom Mee in 2013. Jim Perry and Camilo Pascual in 2012. Greg Gagne in 2010. Brad Radke and George Brophy in 2009. Brophy famously was, I believe, the scout who signed Kirby Puckett. Rick Aguilera in 2008. I'm getting close to the end here, I promise. Gary Gaetti and Jim Rance in 2007, Zoilo Versailles in 2006, Frank Viola and Carl Polat in 2005, Earl Batty in 2004, Bob Casey, legendary announcer, Kirby, that guy, and Bob Alice. It was a dual Bob induction in 2003. Bert Blyleven and Tom Kelly in 2002, year after Tom Kelly retired. Jim Cott and Herb Carneal in 01. And then the inaugural class was in 2000, and this is quite a who's who in Twins history. Harmon Killebrew, Rod Carew, Tony Oliva, Kent Herbeck, Kirby Puckett, and Calvin Griffith. I'd probably like to have that last one back. But quite a list. I did, though, hear some people saying, who is Rick Stelmaszek? And I don't know. That bothered me. That felt disrespectful. And someone said Terry Ryan is whatever. You cannot tell the story of Twins baseball since 1961 without mentioning both Terry Ryan and Rick Stelmaszek, and I firmly believe that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Rick Stelmaszek was, maybe he wasn't a manager or an executive, but he certainly helped shape what the Twins were as a franchise while he was there. And of course, Terry Ryan, his moves and his tenure, before and after Bill Smith and around, certainly, the kind of team that the Twins are today, I think, is sort of in Terry Ryan's image a little bit. So the kind of franchise that they've become. So what was the story with Knobloch being elected but not inducted? Did he not come to the...
I actually think he was accused of assault in the period between election and induction, or he had some kind of personal thing where it wasn't good. I got to vote in, what year did I vote? I think that might have been the year that I voted, and he just didn't make it after that because he screwed up. Hey, though, let's take a quick second, talk about our friends at Factor Meals. We'll come back. We got lots of stuff to still talk about here. But first, a message from Factor Meals. If you're like me, you're trying to eat better in the new year, you can take the stress out of meal planning by going to Factor Meals. You can skip the grocery store prep work and cooking fatigue, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. 35 meals to choose from each week. You can be keto, you can be calorie smart, vegan, vegetarian, so many different options and add-ons besides. So if you're working on a resolution or just trying to improve yourself, Factor Meals is the way to go. You don't have to do your frantic lunch prep in the morning or the dinner at night when you get home. It's not as difficult as it needs to be when you do Factor Meals, or it's easier than it would be otherwise, I should say. 2-minute meals are your secret weapon in the new year. Restaurant quality meals delivered to your door. You can skip the overpriced takeout trap. You can have an occasional special occasion meal. But when things get hectic, Factor is flexible. You can do as few as 4 to up to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule deliveries anytime. It has everything you need for flavorful, nutritious eats without any of the issues. Also, cold pressed juices, smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and so much more. I mean, this takes care of everything for you. So go to factormeals.com factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. Again, that's factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50. And then the promo code is LockedOnMLB50, and you'll get 50% off your first order. All right, we are ready to dive back in, and Twinsfest was this last week. I assume you've never been to Twinsfest, Dave, and it's basically like at the Metrodome, it was a huge 3-day long autograph party, and they had people on the field, different booths and everything. They had a minor league booth that was all free, and then the affiliates would set up little satellite team pro shops. There was a place for kids to play wiffle ball, all that fun stuff. That's been pared down at Target Field just due to space. But they have Twinsfest Live on Friday night. I believe that's at the Fillmore across the street from Target Field. They have Signature Saturday, and then that's it. It's a lot more abbreviated. But at Twinsfest Live, Byron Buxton said and boldly proclaimed, "Oh yeah, I'm back." So he has visions on playing center field on a regular basis this year. One, what are your thoughts? And two, what is a realistic expectation for him?
Well, what's the limit? Is he? What's the most games he's ever played in center field? Is it 100?
It's probably somewhere along those lines. I know he has one season with 140 games played, and then I think the next highest it's below 100, maybe 92 or something.
Right. So, it's great that he feels up to it now, and it kind of essential.
Yeah.
Well, baseball being what it is, I can just sort of imagine it not being that way all season. So, the Twins are going to have to do load management, obviously, and they're probably going to have to find another outfielder, either in trade or in free agency that will, if they don't feel like Willie Castro is the guy, or Nick Gordon. And I don't know that I would feel that confident if that's who they went in as the backup guys. They do have some minor leaguers who are very talented, and maybe that's the way they go. But I don't know if those guys have enough games played above AA or A ball to make me too comfortable with that. So it's great that Buxton. A lot of Buxton's value comes on defense. He a few years ago broke through and became a devastating hitter too. And it's important that he stays healthy enough for that part. But it's, Buxton, to get the most bang out of him, has got to play some games on defense. And I hope he stays healthy enough to do it.
So the Twins are the most injury plagued at center field and first base. If Scott Boras calls you up and says he'll let you sign Cody Bellinger for 3 years and $105 million, the exact terms that Carlos Correa got with opt-outs, does that interest you at all whatsoever?
Yeah, it interests me. But a couple things. I don't know. I don't get the feeling the Twins are thinking about something like that. And two, I think, last year was the year that Bellinger, kind of took a whatever kind of deal to show that he was good enough. I think he's probably looking for more, but I don't see him settling for less than 5 or 6 years. That takes the Twins out. That takes a lot of teams out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the kind of deal that he's going to sign. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if I'm wrong, but I think from the Boras Bellinger standpoint, he showed that he can do it again, and he shouldn't have to take a shorter deal. I mean, that's a lot of money, but it's not as much money, I think, as they were planning on him getting. So if you look at all the players who are still unsigned, a big portion of them, big money guys, I don't know that there's a panic on that side, or, I'm sure they want to get it done and get him thinking about where he's going to play, but still here before spring training starts, I don't think they're going to be desperate enough to take not a hometown discount, but whatever kind of discount that is.
And it's important to note, too, the Correa situation was hastened by the lockout. So it was kind of a quick hurry up and get this done, but not sign for 10 years someplace because you don't have enough time once things were going again to really scope out a city, find where you want to be for the next 10 years. In the meantime, the Twins have him for a year, a really nice year, and he seems to like it well enough for them to be his third choice. But ends up coming back. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I see it with Bellinger. I think it's more along the lines of it's probably going to be Adam Duvall. I really think it's going to be Adam Duvall or someone like that.
He fits the profile. I'm not sure. I've said it before too. I don't know how much center field he has left in him.
Right.
I think he has been he's been rated out there surprisingly well for a big, huge, lumbering man. But as you get into your 30s, it happened to me, and it's happening to you.
Yes.
You don't get around as well as you used to. So I don't know. I think that I think Adam Duvall helps, but I don't know if it helps in center.
No, I think that's a good point, and I wonder if any addition has to help them in center because they obviously trusted Willie Castro enough to play some center, and they trust Nick Gordon enough to play some center, but the guy out there was Michael A. Taylor, and he's still out there. So who knows? Again, we debated whether or not he should take less than Harrison Bader or one of the other center fielders who signed. Kiermaier. And so we'll see what that comes down to. Let's take a quick second. We'll talk about FanDuel. And then when we come back, I've got a few more news and notes, including a pitcher the Twins showed interest in before trading for DeSclafani. Don't know if they're still interested, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, again, a word from FanDuel. Oh, so it's Super Bowl Sunday coming up here, less than 2 weeks away. And happy Super Bowl to anyone who celebrates. From FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is about all different sorts of things. It's food, it's friends or family, and the commercials. And there's also a game, and sometimes the game is a little bit secondary. Dave's Kansas City Chiefs, at least the team he lives closest to, will be representing the AFC.
Oh, they're mine.
Oh, they are yours. Okay, good. Good. And also San Francisco, which is bound to be a pretty good matchup, in my opinion. But yeah, if you have any bets that you like, FanDuel is the way to go. There's so many different ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. You can bet on who will win the Super Bowl, but also props like which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and much more. You have to check it out for yourself because it's too much for us to get to in a minute here. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets for free if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, coming down the home stretch, Dave Brown, and let's see here. John Paul Morosi said the Twins had interest in Michael Lorenzen before trading for Anthony DeSclafani. Not clear if that still may be the case. Does Michael Lorenzen, 32-year-old Michael Lorenzen, do anything for you for the Twins?
He does something for me. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he did throw a no-hitter last year.
Yep.
With the Phillies. He really petered out toward the end of the season, as I recall. His second half splits were not that good. He's a guy who, the Twins are talking about pushing Louis Varland into a starter's role. And, it's not quite the same thing. Lorenzen has been a major league reliever for years, and it's worked out that he's done well as a starter. At this point, with the DeSclafani acquisition, I think the only other kind of pitcher that should be interesting to the Twins is like somebody in case, like as a Band-Aid in case somebody gets hurt, or somebody really good like Jordan Montgomery. But as I said, with the Pohlads money on Bellinger, I don't think they're going to give Jordan Montgomery $100 million either. So
Right.
I don't think that's in the cards. But Lorenzen doesn't move the needle enough unless somebody gets hurt between now and whenever for me to be interested.
How about this? 2019, he threw 83 and a third innings, 0 starts, 73 games in relief. Strikeout per inning, decent ground ball rate, threw 97 out of the bullpen. You could do worse as a swingman, like a Jesse Chavez type.
And can hit a little bit. I mean, that's not really relevant anymore, but he's
a
guy who can play the outfield and can hit in some kind of extreme emergency. So, yeah, I think the Twins have, they have pretty good depth in their bullpen, and I like the pieces that they've added, and they have 6 starters at the moment.
Yep.
So I don't see them adding somebody like that right now. So
sounds like the Twins are only going to pay about $4 million of DeSclafani's deal. Is it possible we're overrating the potential for him to be sharpied into this rotation? Because honestly, at that kind of money, he's got a good slider. There might be pieces there for a career renaissance out of the bullpen as well.
That would be that. That hasn't occurred to me, but
at the cost for me is what matters. Like $4 million, you're not wagering much.
You're not. That's interesting. It does give them options. I would say that is something that maybe they're not planning on, but maybe planning for.
Yeah.
Just in case, Paddock goes wild and has a great return, and Louis Varland is good, and they, maybe a couple guys get hurt in the bullpen, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I think, DeSclafani has made a good chunk of starts in the major leagues. He's been around for a while. And when he is right, he's actually really good. I mean, he's got a league average ERA for his career adjusted. It's like 4.20, I think. No jokes. But when he's good, his good seasons are really, really good. And if he's
not entirely unlike Tyler Mahle.
Say again, over.
Sorry, I jumped in over you. Not entirely unlike Tyler Mahle, though.
Yeah, you mentioned Tyler Mahle as a comparison to him the other day, and they both come from Cincinnati, and you're going to scare people away if you keep talking about Tyler Mahle.
But Sonny Gray came from Cincinnati, and he was good. So you got to break the tie. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I suppose. But when you bring up Tyler Mahle, I think people get ibbity-jibbity. And that's, that is a possible outcome with DeSclafani. But I think, he's young enough, and there's enough tread in the tire, and as long as his elbow is okay, he could pitch like 2021 or 2019 or 16 or 15 and be really good, be a 3-win. He's a 4-win starter one of those years, the 2021 season. That might be a bit much, but he could be a top 35 starter, a really good number 3 starter. And I think that's more than people are expecting. I think people see mediocrity with him, and I don't think that's true. I think it'll either be a complete disaster, like the last 2 years with the Giants. Not last year wasn't a disaster, but he had an injury too.
Right.
Something terrible or something really good. And it's a good gamble that the Twins are taking here, I think.
Yeah. We got one listener question we can get to at least. Paul Johnson wants to know, are the Twins the mystery team for Jorge Soler? I'll have an addendum there. Should they be? Now, you're going to have more familiarity with him because you have seen him play in Kansas City. The 2019 season with him was so much fun. He and Nelson Cruz just hitting the crap out of the ball. Should the Twins be in on that?
We talked about Adam Duvall being, maybe an answer on the corners. And he's a solid defensive player, I think, still. Jorge Soler less so. But that's a right-handed bat that would really electrify the lineup. And, insurance in case Wallner's season last year was a little fool's gold or
Larnach stumbles.
Something like that. And a DH is also possible too. He's less of he's a better fielder than, like, say, Eloy Jimenez, but probably not as good of a fielder as Adam Duvall. But a great that would be a great. I think the Twins should be in on him. I think that is where offensively and maybe even in the outfield is where they need to add a little bit more.
If you're married to the idea now that Edouard Julien is the starting second baseman, and I think there's probably a pretty good chance of that, would you be more interested or more apt to be interested in Brandon Belt, whose market seems to be cropping up? I know he's left-handed, but he gives you OBP. Not going to cost that much. He's old enough that you get him on a one-year deal. I don't know. I mean, it's him or Joey Votto. I'm not really sure I see either of them, but I would definitely prefer Belt.
I'm more confident that Belt has something left. I hope Joey Votto does. I think he does. Right. I think he's been bothered by injuries. Mm-hmm. And when you get to be 40, sometimes there's no coming back from that. Belt is younger. He would be great, although superficially at least, he's a lot like Kirilloff. That's kind of doubling up a little bit too much with similar type guy. So that would kind of bother me a little bit. But I mean, Belt's the kind of, I wouldn't kick him out of bed for eating crackers or whatever the saying is. He's not ideal, and I'd have to look at his splits to see, is he good against lefties as well? I mean, that would be nice. We'll see how cheap they could get him, but I'd be more interested in him. Well, I don't know. I would be interested in him, sure.
Should the Twins have been in on Justin Turner at 1 and 13? 1 year, $13 million.
Yeah, probably. I really don't know how much he has left defensively. I think it's probably only first base, but right-handed hitter, that would be a guy who's been around winners, and you do lack some flexibility defensively, but always adding a redhead is a good idea.
Yeah, they'll probably go cheap with Donovan Solano, and I don't have a problem with that. We got to get out of here. We only got a few seconds. Dave has an article on Jorge Polanco and the deal coming out on Access Twins. Make sure you check it out. But for now, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Twins, and we'll see ya.
See ya.